It's Parx Saturday, live from the sports book here at Parx Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. We are live on the PHLY Sports YouTube page. I'm your host, Jeff Skversky, alongside my producer, Julia Huff. We're taking you from 12 to 2 on this cold and snowy Saturday, and we have a lot to talk about today. A jam-packed show. We're going to get into the Eagles and everything that went wrong. I mean, let's be honest, we should be talking about an Eagles football game during this divisional round. We are not, and of course, we're going to get into lots about the Birds. We're going to hear from A.J. Brown, Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, and also NFL analyst Ross Tucker. He has some great insight on what went wrong and what the Eagles need in a next offensive coordinator. Some great insight from Ross Tucker. That's coming up as well. We're also going to talk about the Phillies, the whole Bo Bichette situation, as well as JT Realmuto. And did the Phillies do enough this offseason with spring training around the corner? We're going to have former Phillies star Tommy Greene join the program in just a few minutes. We're going to talk about that and much more today on Parx Saturday, live from Parx Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. All right, we got to get into this whole Phillies situation. I mean, look, Bo Bichette going to the New York Mets. I know initially it hurts. And yes, the Phillies missed out on Bo Bichette. Reportedly, they offered him that 7-year, $200 million offer, which met his demand and his agent's demand. And then at the last second, the New York Mets, the Phillies' arguably biggest rival, they come swinging in on a chandelier and stealing Bo Bichette away. Look, Bichette is a two-time All-Star. He led the American League in hits twice. But look, 3 years, $126 million. That is $42 million per year for Bo Bichette. And by the way, he has outs after each of those years on that 3-year deal. That is not a good deal for the Phillies, right? And I get it. Bo Bichette's a really nice player, a very good player. But for the money, there is better bang for your buck than Bo Bichette. And Bo Bichette is not the reason the Phillies, didn't win the World Series last year. It didn't get past the Dodgers. And I don't think Bo Bichette, yes, a nice player would help this team, is the difference maker on this Phillies team. And look, he was terrible as a shortstop, terrible defensively last year for the Blue Jays. You don't need that. And I know the initial thing was, he's going to come to the Phillies and maybe he'll play third, maybe he would play second. But look at these numbers, and I know this may sound crazy to you, and call me crazy, but Bo Bichette's a really good player, and yes, he's better than Alec Bohm, but if you break down the numbers, if you break this up, besides his WAR that backs up why he's a better player, Bichette's overall value is higher, but not that much higher than Alec Bohm, and I know it's crazy to sound, but if you break it down, the game by game, and you look at it, it's not that drastic, okay? When you actually look at the per game per numbers, it's not massively an offensive gap that you would think between Bichette and Alec Bohm. Hits per game, close. RBI per game, very close. Power edge, sure. Bichette. Speed, again, Bichette. But it's not night and day at the plate. And I'll tell you, despite the years of issues with Alec Bohm defensively, Alec Bohm is a better defensive player at third base than potentially Bo Bichette would be if they played him at third or at second. So Bichette was bad defensively at shortstop last year. He's going to go to the Mets and likely play third base, a position he's never played before at the professional level. So I look at this situation and say, look, good riddance. And I know it hurts. I know it hurts. At the end of the day, I'm telling you, look at these numbers, is Alec Bohm. When you look at stats per game and you break it down, I don't see a huge drastic difference. So then when you look at it, a few hours later, they decide, okay, we're going to bite the bullet and bring back JT Realmuto, 3 years, $45 million. The guy's 34. I get the age thing. And people are like, okay, they're running it back. But did they really have any other choice? Did they have any other choice? He's one of the greatest catchers in baseball right now. He's great defensively. Obviously, he's coming off arguably his worst year, but when you really think about it, they had no other choice. They had to do it. So let's get some insight on everything that went down yesterday in the Phillies offseason as a whole. Let's bring in former Phillies starter Tommy Greene. Tommy, how's it going?
How you doing, man? Good snowy, cold day.
Oh, yes, it is. I'd much rather be inside, sitting on the couch. But in any event, Tommy, you threw the 8th no-hitter in Phillies history nearly 25 years ago, 1991 in Montreal. You know what it takes at the big league level. You played the game at a high level for a very long time. When you look at what the Phillies did yesterday as a pitcher, I don't think there's many guys that are better than JT Realmuto, but I wanted to get your thoughts. I've been hearing rumblings, Phillies fans upset. What are your thoughts when you look at what happened yesterday with Bo Bichette and then JT Realmuto?
Well, I mean, you look at what's happened. Obviously things were in line to add a great young player to the mix, and that's the thing about free agency and stuff out there. You get to test your fair market value, and somebody right at the end swooped in and made an offer that was very enticing to him in a package that was it was hard for him to turn down, and that's the nature of the beast. You learn quickly as a player. It's a business, and that's what it comes down to. And it hurts that you miss out on a guy like that. But I look at it like this: where have we been the past few years? We've been in line to do some positive things and go deep into the postseason, and you just run into some good pitching. And good pitching to me shuts down hitting any day. And that's what happened. I think when you start talking about the Dodgers getting healthy at the right time, and that's what happened. But and conversely, what happened after that with JT coming back into the fold, I think that was a good get for the pitching staff of Philadelphia, because he knows those guys, he knows what makes them tick, and the success is in the numbers. You look back at it, is in writing there. It's on the wall. What he does for that pitching staff and for the running game, the other people running against him, he does a very good job at that. So. I think that was a good get adding JT back.
I have to ask you because, and I've heard Mike Schmidt talk about this. Is there a sense as a former player that played in the 90s, is there the jealousy factor over just how cartoony some of the money is right now? And listen, everyone deserves their money, but when you look at this, I mean, it's insane to me. For an average person to see what these guys are getting, Bo Bichette. When you think about it, like $42 million a year, I mean, it's insane. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's a Hall of Fame player right now, but $42 million a year?
Well, I mean, do I think it's absurd? Yes. But I look back at it, I remember when I first signed in 1985, my boss, of the head of the minor leagues with the Atlanta Braves, who I was drafted by, was Hank Aaron. Now, how do you think he was feeling about what we were making
right.
at the time? It works hand in hand. It's just I know we went through a work stoppage and a strike in '94, and I think with the things that happened there, I know it hurt me as a player, but I'd do it again because you're fighting for the rights of yourself, but also the future guys to get their fair market value when they test the market like that. Do I think it's too high? Yes. And there's got to be some kind of, I think, peaceful situation where it's got to end somewhere. You got to put some type of ceiling on it somewhere, because it's hard. I can't fathom that type of money, so it's tough.
Yeah, and I can't fathom that. And look, it's not my money. I always say it's not my money, right? So if the Phillies
take it.
Yeah, like if the Phillies can afford it, then go and do it. But when I look at this team and I go, Bo Bichette would have been a nice player for this lineup, but there were questions about where he would fit. Do you play him at third where he's never played before? Do you put him at second? Okay, I think he would help this team. There's no question. Yeah. But I got to be honest, when you go back and you look at the last few years with the Phillies, you hit on it there. They were facing great pitching, but their stars did not come up in the biggest moments. And when it shined the brightest at the end of the day, Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto, who did have a nice series against the Dodgers. But for the most part, your biggest stars, Schwarber, Harper, Turner, they did not come up in those big moments. And that's the reason why. And so I don't have a huge issue with the Phillies running it back. What are your thoughts about the Phillies, one, running it back and going, look, it is time for these stars who they've paid a lot of money to, hundreds of millions of dollars, to put up or shut up?
Yeah, you're hitting it on the head right there a little bit. It's the guys. Let me say this: nobody's out there trying to go out there and fail. Those guys are going out there and giving it their all, and it so happens that it comes up in a situation where you face some hot pitching on the other side, and they can shut you down. The Atlanta Braves proved that for years and years and years, that pitching and defense does a lot of things to get you to the postseason. But a hot team can come in there at the end a little bit, and with the pitching too, and keep you down to where one swing of the bat makes a difference in the ball game. And that's what makes the game so great. You can try to buy it, but that doesn't mean you still got to play the game. And at the end, you got to hit a round ball with a round bat, and it's just taking advantage of the mistakes of the other guy. And the last couple of years, we in that situation, we really haven't done that. Now this year could be a totally different thing. So me personally, I don't have a problem. They put themselves in a situation where they can win, where they can go. But the way the playoff structure is now, where there's other teams getting in there at the end of the season, and you could win throughout the year, but you might not be playing good at the end. And the team that's not played good in the year, but squeak in on one of the wild cards and start playing well, they can knock you off because they're pitching well and playing well at the same time. So, I mean, the playoff structure is geared for that upset, if you ask me, because the first place guys get a bye and they sit off. I don't like that, me personally. I think the guys need to play and keep it going.
Do you have concern that the Phillies are running this back essentially with the same team? Is there a concern for you when you look at really what has happened and what has transpired this offseason? Or do you say, you know what, like put it on these stars to figure it out?
Exactly. I think, sometimes this kind of stuff happens. They're trying to go after some guys that can possibly make a difference, and they didn't get them. So what we got to have is the next man up type situation, through our organization, which the young guys have to start contributing to. They get the opportunity in spring training to stick their foot in the door, and there's no reason why we can't have that here, to go along with the core guys and the veteran leadership they have on this team. Those guys, they've got to the postseason for how many years now in a row. And there's no reason why they can't make it further this year. They got to stay healthy. They got to play good baseball at the end, and that's what it comes down to. You just got to play good baseball when it counts at the end, and not give up too many errors and little things. Just play solid baseball to give you a chance to win a ball game.
We're talking to a former Phillies starter, Tommy Greene, here on Parx Saturday. And Tommy, you touched on it earlier. When you look at JT Realmuto, I know you played with Darren Daulton, who was a tremendous leader in the clubhouse on and off the field. JT Realmuto is a similar guy with the pitching staff. I know his numbers at the plate have been down, and he's coming off arguably his worst season. So there is some concern giving him 3 years, $45 million. But what can be said about having a catcher like that for this Phillies pitching staff and just how crucial it is? So can you tell people that are listening that go, JT's numbers are down, but what is his value as a leader in the clubhouse and certainly with his handling of the pitching staff?
Well, I can't put it. You're asking the great question. You can just read into your question as why they gave him what they gave him is because the intangibles he brings to the clubhouse and to the pitching staff, not just numbers at the plate. Yeah, to me, that's an added bonus when you're commanding the staff like that and they're pitching the way they are. That's a credit to the pitching staff plus him. To be at the top of the league and keeping you in games like that all the time. So that's worth something. I have no problem with that. His value is there, and that's it. Just in that alone, if you ask me. I'm biased being a pitcher, but to me, the second half of the season, there at the end, he started coming on and swinging the bat better. But total overall numbers, yeah, they're down. Looking back in the course of history, not every great hitter had great years every year. They're going to go through their little peaks and valleys a little bit, and he's a veteran guy that's been around a while now that catches a whole lot. He's got to make some adjustments during the offseason every year to maybe help himself be better, to figure out his body a little bit more. And that's what's so great about the game. It's not cut and dry. It's not on paper. You have to go out there and play it every day, and every day's a little bit different. So he brings to the table more than this offensive numbers. He brings that defense and keep runners, the other side's runners quieter on base. and giving our pitching staff a chance to win.
Do you have concern, though, with the age of this team? This team, to me, feels similar to it did when the Phillies won the World Series in '08, and the years after with Jimmy Rollins and Ryan Howard and Shane Victorino and Carlos Ruiz, and they're getting older and older and older, and they're trying to run it back. To me, it feels like that. I mean, when you think about it, JT Realmuto, when his contract is up, the current one, he'll be 37. Bryce Harper, when his deal is up, will be 39. Trey Turner, when his deal's up, 40. Aaron Nola, 37. Zach Wheeler, 36. When you hear that, is there concern? Obviously, you know as well as anybody, as you get older, and obviously, in the grand scheme of life, you're not old, but in baseball terms, you're up there. How much of a challenge, how much of a concern is it that these guys are getting older, and you don't have a ton of young youth and that energy on this team right now?
Well, I mean, and that's the thing about the organization, what they've tried to do over the past few years through the scouting and through the draft and different things is to add some quality young guys into the organization, either be by trade or drafting guys, and that's what they're trying to do. And you got to have at some point some influx of guys coming up through your organization. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in spring training with some of the young guys that were in the minor leagues last year, having that opportunity to maybe stick their foot in the door in the rotation and also maybe in the outfield. You never know what's going to happen there with Crawford out there. He could be an asset and one of those guys that could do some positive thing and add some value to that outfield that's already there. We just got it's not an I in team. It's got a team is we got to help each other out now. And everybody like Bryce Harper can't carry the team throughout the year. Neither can Schwarber. Everybody's got to have their time where they're picking each other up and doing some positive things that keeps this train rolling down the track.
Yeah, there's not an I in team, but there's I think Kobe Bryant used to say, but there's an M in me, right? So.
Wait. Everybody's still got to go out there and pull their weight. There are 9 horses on that horse and carriage. They're pulling that stagecoach, and each one of them's going to take turns pulling probably a little bit more. They got to pull their own weight. It ain't going to be one horse pulling it. So everybody's got to pull their own weight and do some positive things. But the thing about a team, you got guys that can pick you up when you're not necessarily playing your best. Other guys can get hot and kind of get, for a week or two can carry the team just offensively. That being Schwarber being one of them. He gets hot. I mean, he can put some numbers up on the board like you haven't seen, which we saw, last year. I mean, it's unbelievable to watch how hot he can get at times.
Yeah, and so when you talk about the outfield, obviously the Phillies do not have plans to bring Nick Castellanos back, and so they're either going to have to eat that money or trade. But spring training's around the corner. Have you been in a situation in the past where you're on a team and there's I don't want to say a guy disgruntled, but a guy that's just not working out, and he's been a big piece of the team, and you got to move on? Have you been in a clubhouse in a situation that felt similar at any point in your career?
Well, I mean, you see some guys, throughout your career that necessarily that it might not be in the grand scheme of things that don't gel in the clubhouse maybe as much. But I mean, the things that happened, with the Phillies this past year, I think it's something that can't happen, and I think it messes with the clubhouse a little bit. When I wasn't privy to that, I'm just speculating that might be. Some things that happen, but me personally, as a ball player, I know that can't happen. What happened, what the Phillies went through, and so I think people don't realize how important the clubhouse unity and what goes on in behind the closed doors with the guys affects things on the field a little bit. So when you got that closeness in that thing going on. It's a huge asset to have. You're going to have your ups and downs in the clubhouse too. There's going to be some things happen. There's guys, I mean, they're like family. They're living with each other more than they're living with their own family, throughout the year. So there's going to be times where they have issues and stuff like that. Every team has it. But that's what's so key about the leadership in the clubhouse. And like you said before, you hit on the man that I played with, Darren Dalton. There was nobody better in the business than him. and keeping the clubhouse unified and going in the right direction. He was the man.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Darren Dalton. I know you're really passionate about the Darren Dalton Foundation, and I believe, is this true that he's the reason that he met his wife?
No, well, I met my wife.
Oh, that's how you met your wife.
Yeah, well, I reconnected with my wife. He was the reason who now my wife Wendy who got reconnected. And
how is that? I thought Darren Dalton was supposed to help you on the field, not introduce you to your wife.
Well, here's the thing: what woman on the face of the planet goes up to Darren Dalton and asks about another dude? And that's what happened. So, and he turned, and he ended up reconnecting us because we met each other when we were young. But he changed my life that way. More than just on the baseball field. He was a very dear friend of mine, and he stood for a lot of things. He was a very passionate guy about people and really cared about people, and it showed when he walked into a room how he cared about people. He's very he's missed by all of us.
Yeah, we had Larry Boa on a couple months ago after the latest charity event for the Darren Dalton Foundation in the city. Yeah. You guys have done an amazing job over the years raising money and giving out grants to others suffering from brain cancer to help others. Why is this still so important to you? I mean, we lost Darren a long time ago, but this is still going. Why is this still so important to you?
Well, something that, obviously he was so passionate about it. With the foundation with glioblastoma, it's not just, to me, just about that. It's about Darren. And it's also about the cancer, the glioblastoma, but it's also about what he started out with was caring about people, the homeless people. He cared about people really didn't know he did stuff for, and that's what I try to do too. I'm involved obviously with the Darren Dalton Foundation, but try to do things throughout the community with the youth and the homelessness of the, so to speak, the youth, and making sure they have places to go. Working with the Covenant House like we did, the Phillies did. They had to sleep out at the ballpark, where we were involved in, where we slept on the field. There was a few of us, ex-ball players were out there. My wife was really involved in that too, and raising money for it. So the passion about giving back to the Philadelphia community, I think that's what Darren stood for too, not just what took his life, the glioblastoma, but that's a big passion of that, because we want to try to curtail and make a difference in that, so we can help save lives, from people not dying from the cancer that he died from with glioblastoma. We've lost entirely too many people on the Phillies, alumni throughout the years, and we need to find hopefully some kind of hoping to find a cure, but also something they can make their longevity of life more for their families and stuff to help them get through that rough time.
Yeah, I commend you. I commend you on all the work that you have done over the years with that. And, of course, the Covenant House, you slept outside in November. You helped raise $2,500 by yourself alone. When you're sleeping on the field of Citizens Bank Park in the cold in November, do you have a moment where you're like, what am I doing? It's 2 degrees out in November.
No, that's man. That's what it's all about. And let me make this correct. My wife was the big one that made the money. She really got out there and tried to make every dollar. If it was $10, $20, $25, or whatever it was, come to try to make a difference to help the Covenant House make a difference. And that's what it comes down to. The Phillies are so involved in the community and give back to the to the charities and stuff in the Philadelphia region. And it's such a great thing to be involved. It's not, being involved with the Darren Dalton Foundation. That's the big passion, that hits close to home and get to my heart, because my love for Darren and what he stood for, and what he meant to the Philadelphia area and the people in Philadelphia. But to be able to give back and be involved in just more than one, but different things that make a difference into people's life, youth, the older people, that's what it's all about. If we got a platform to do that helps life in general, that's what me and my wife are all about, to make a difference.
Tommy Greene, I really appreciate it. It was great to hear this insight. Before I let you go, Can the Phillies beat the Dodgers? Can we just end on this? Can the Phillies beat the Dodgers with the team that they have right now?
Yes, they can. It comes down to pitching and defense, man. We had it right there. So, I mean, one pitch, one swing to bat makes a difference. Why can't it be us? So, I mean, we got hot at the Dodgers weren't playing that well. They got into playoffs, but they weren't necessarily all year playing. They were getting beat, and not necessarily the best team in baseball. Everybody thought. They just got hot at the right time. Why can't we get hot at the right time?
I love the positivity. Tommy Greene, he threw that no-hitter in 1991. I was a kid. I remember watching that at home against the Expos. It was awesome. It was a day game, I remember. It was awesome. I absolutely loved it. I was a kid, not to date myself, but I still remember that to this day, throwing that no-hitter. I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah, well, yes. It was a special day in my life and hopefully Philadelphia history, for the people. And people don't realize this. I always tell the story. I said the game I'm really proud of too was 5 days later when I pitched against them again, Montreal in Philly. And then I threw a 3-hit shutout against them.
Well, I don't remember
nobody in this game, so they got another look at me.
Yeah, I didn't remember that, and I also didn't remember that you started your career in Atlanta. And I'm like, oh wow, there's a Hank Aaron connection. I'm like, I learned something today. I completely did not realize that.
Yeah, I come up through Atlanta, and fortunate enough to be. I was a part of all that young pitching. With Glavine and Smoltz and Avery and all those guys that all come up kind of together. And sometimes a change of scenery, and some guys mature at different times. I know it was the best thing to happen to me to get traded, because it gave me an opportunity to possibly pitch and me to be able to stick my foot in the door and do some things I felt like I needed to do my way. And that's exactly what happened. And I kept the door open and things worked out positively. It just shows you there's much as you like to stay with your original team, there's 29 other teams out there, that you could help and you could possibly get your foot in the door with, especially these days when more teams they're carrying more pitchers and stuff on the staff. So you got a little bit more chance to get a job or stay there, so to speak.
Tommy Greene, we kept you way too long. Great insight, though. I love what you said about the Bo Bichette, JT Realmuto situation, the Phillies overall, and, of course, all the work you do in the community with the Darren Dalton Foundation and, of course, the Covenant House with the Phillies raising money for people in need. Thank you so much for just being so graceful with your time on this Saturday.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Tommy Greene, former Phillies starter, 25 years ago, nearly to the day. It is coming up that he threw that no-hitter against the Montreal Expos. Great insight from Tommy Greene, talking about the Bo Bichette situation, obviously going to the Mets and bringing back JT Realmuto. And obviously, too, the Phillies, they lose Ranger Suarez, but they still, when you think about this Phillies team and this team going forward, they can't keep everybody. Ranger Suarez gets $130 million to go to the Boston Red Sox. It was pretty much a foregone conclusion that Ranger was not going to return. So can't keep everybody, but the Phillies' starting rotation is really still intact. And obviously Andrew Painter hopefully will come up and take the next step. So great insight there from Tommy Greene. But I'm concerned about the Phillies. I really am when you think about just running it back with the aging veterans. Can they flip that switch? We saw with the Eagles, they were not able to flip the switch. And let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. I was so wrong about the Birds. I really was. And I'll be honest, I was positive all season. I'm not a positive guy. I was positive all season about the Birds. Even though my eye test told me something different, even though with my own eyes, I saw just like you did all year that something was just off about this football team. I kept believing they were going to figure this out. They were going to figure this out and flip the switch. I remember talking to Jordan Mailata a couple days before the wild card game against the 49ers, and he's like, we're going to flip the switch. We have no choice. It's do or die. We have to. I believed. I bought in. Okay, they were coming off that long season and the Super Bowl win and the parade, and it's a lot of time and energy, and they've played a lot of games under Nick Sirianni going to the playoffs year in and year out. I just kept believing, but I was just totally wrong. They never were able to figure it out. But it's bad because this team, in my opinion, should have been going back to the Super Bowl. They have every reason to be going back to the Super Bowl when you look at their roster. And I understand that games are not played on paper. They are played on the field. But the NFC is weak this year. It's weak. And there was no clear-cut favorite. And at this point, yes, I like the Rams out of the NFC. But the Eagles could beat the Rams. They have beaten the Rams. And to have all this talent on this team, the most expensive and highest price offense in the NFL, to not take a step further and not only lose in the playoffs, but lose to the 49ers that were decimated. The Eagles weren't decimated with injuries. Okay, the Eagles pretty much had everyone back. They were almost 100% healthy. And I know guys are banged up. Everybody's banged up this time of the year, but they had the bye week. Essentially, the way they rested the starters against the Commanders in the finale, they should have been much better. The 49ers had a million injuries. To lose to the 49ers at home when you have a healthy team and a bye week, it's just ridiculous. And look, everyone's mad. I get it. It's frustrating. The highest paid offense in the NFL just is terrible this season. Let's call it what it is at this point. Terrible. I was positive that they would figure it out. They just never did. And the interesting thing that I thought about this week was A.J. Brown. The Eagles star receiver has been calling this all year long. And earlier this season, you're like, all right, A.J., just be quiet. Just go play. Just go do this. He comes out on Twitch, and he's disgruntled, and he's upset. And you're like, dude, they're going to figure it out. Just relax. But, man, A.J. Brown was right the whole time. He called it and hit the nail on the head. He was right. I want you to hear this from November, a couple days before they were getting ready for that Sunday night game against the Detroit Lions at home. A.J. Brown was frustrated. He was mad. He was upset. You could feel the tension. Listen to what A.J. Brown said on November 12th about this football team and about this offense. Take a listen. Right. And maybe didn't go about it the right way, but A.J. Brown was right about this team the whole time. And I feel differently about it today sitting here listening to that from November 12th than I did at the time. And the whole time, A.J. Brown hit the nail on the head. He was right about this offense. And Nick Sirianni, he tried to intervene. He tried to work with Kevin Patullo and devote more time to this offense, getting it right. And we saw at the end of Hard Knocks on HBO earlier this week, Jalen Hurts sitting there in the Eagles auditorium where they have their team meetings, where they have their press conferences. And Jalen Hurts, in a one-on-one conversation with Nick Sirianni, saying, we're going to be back. We're going to be back. And Sirianni's saying, I know we will. I mean, there's a lot to fix with this team. And as much as A.J. Brown is running his mouth and this and that earlier in the season, they had 4 drops on third down against the 49ers in the wild card round. And that was more third down drops than they had in the regular season combined. And that's the most in a playoff game since they began tracking this in 20 years ago. So, look, AJ, he spoke up, but actions speak louder than words. And AJ, in the biggest moment, for all the gripes and all the complaining and all the frustration in the biggest game of the season, did not show up. And I know that's not a hot take or anything like that. I'm not a big hot take guy, but I am annoyed with A.J. Brown because if you're going to go out there and put all this out there and these passive-aggressive approaches on social media and Twitch and have these tension-filled press conferences, and I don't want to call it be a distraction, but he's the only guy doing this. And so maybe it was a point of desperation. Maybe it was just he just can't control himself, so it just oozes out of him. And as much as we want these guys to be honest, it's not conducive. It's not helpful for the football team. But as much as he's complaining all year, and then they go feed him the ball and they lose 3 straight as he has over 100 yards in 3 straight games, at the end of the day, he dropped the ball in the biggest moments. And he has these cryptic messages on social media and everything else. But in the biggest games, he didn't catch the ball. He didn't. And this Eagles offense did not step up. And then on top of all of it, you're calling out the issues with the offense. You're dropping the ball. And over the last month, I didn't really hear much from A.J. Brown. But after the game, after losing the 49ers game, as a captain on this football team, as a leader on this football team, stand there and take it. I mean, my gosh, you're making hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, I get it. I get it. There's a lot of pressures that come with the sport, but you're making hundreds of millions of dollars. You ran your mouth all season. You dropped the ball. Stand there as a captain and leader of the team and answer the question. The fans want to hear it, right? Like, the fans want to hear it, and I get it. If I messed up at work or I'm having a bad day and I came off set when I want 1,000 people around my desk or locker as I'm trying to get changed, asking me questions that don't really play football, of course not. But that's part of the job. And I thought he did a lousy job of really stepping up as a leader, not only on the field, but off the field at the end of the season when they lost to the 49ers. And then I'll go, all right, what do you do here? I mean, Big Dom had more catches in the second half in that 49ers game than A.J. Brown. See the Big Dom catch on the sideline? I mean, Nick Sirianni then has the spat with A.J. Brown, and I throw that away. Like, everyone's emotions are high. I'm surprised more of that doesn't happen on the sideline between coaches and players and players and I don't even care about that. But there obviously felt like there was some tension there for Nick to unleash that there, that there's been some tension this year with A.J. Brown from both sides. And now you wonder, could they move on from A.J. Brown? And look, they would take a big cap hit and this and that, but they did it with Carson Wentz. As crazy as that felt at the time, drafting Jalen Hurts, and you have a franchise quarterback, and Carson, you just pay. Howie Roseman and his team, they're wizards. They know how to figure this stuff out. So you have to wonder, will Howie Roseman find a way to move on from A.J. Brown? And so Howie was asked that point blank the other day at the postseason press conference. Here's what Howie Roseman said when he was asked, could you potentially trade A.J. Brown? Take a listen to this.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think, at the trade deadline last time I talked. It is hard to find great players in the NFL, and AJ is a great player. I think from my perspective, that's what we're going out and looking for when we go out here in free agency in the draft, is trying to find great players who love football, and he's that guy. So I think that would be my answer.
A.J. Brown, I mean, I thought this press conference, by the way, nothing was said. I mean, they didn't say anything at all. So I do wonder what's going to happen here with A.J. Brown. They, again, were tied for the fewest drops in the NFL, only 13 drops during the regular season, and then they dropped the ball left and right in the biggest game of the season. So what changes do you make? Is A.J. Brown gone? I mean, it sounds crazy, but could Jalen Hurts not be the quarterback next year? I don't think that'll happen, but is there that conversation? Obviously, they have a new coordinator, so a lot of changes are going to be made with this football team, and I wanted to really just figure out, like, everyone's blaming Patullo. Some people are blaming A.J. Brown, but a lot of people are blaming the offensive coordinator who was let go in Kevin Patullo. Who's to blame And who's the next offensive coordinator? I had a great conversation this week with NFL analyst Ross Tucker. Ross had some phenomenal insight on really who's to blame for this offense and who's to blame for everything that went wrong. Should Kevin Patullo have taken the fall? And by the way, what should the Eagles be looking for in a next offensive coordinator? He mentions a very interesting name. Take a listen to my conversation with NFL analyst Ross Tucker. Ross Tucker, the host of the Ross Tucker podcast. You can follow him on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. Ross, what's happening today?
Jeff, I'm doing great, man. Fired up for tomorrow. It'd probably be nice if the Eagles were playing in that game. That'd be awesome, but it's still going to be a game. I'm probably going to freeze. It's going to be super cold in Chicago, but should be a terrific environment. As you might imagine, things are electric right now in Chicago. They are very fired up.
You don't say. I know you do a lot of work with futurefans.com. It's a great website, a great way for families to get their children involved and learn about football. Tell me about that website.
It's funny, Jeff. I don't know if you have kids or like how old they are.
Do, yeah.
But
9 and
dude,
3.
It's not like it was when we were younger. You know, like it's so funny because I'm going to Chicago for tomorrow's game. Like I remember distinctly watching the entire Fog Bowl with my dad, Randall Cunningham and the Eagles against the Bears back in '88. But I have two daughters. I see it with my nephews. Kids today don't want to sit there and watch the whole game with you. They want to be on their iPad. They want to be in the other room. Maybe they'll like look up if it's a touchdown or like they hear you scream. So anyway, I invested with these guys from futurefans.com because they cracked the code to get your 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old, I don't care if it's your grandchild, whatever, to get them to actually understand and know what's going on with football and want to sit there and watch with you. I mean, I don't know. Jeff, it was a rite of passage for me growing up. We went to church. We came home. I think my dad took all of his life's frustrations out on Buddy Ryan and Izell Jenkins and the TV. You know, I just want that for everybody. I want you to have that same experience, that bonding with your kids or nephew or grandkids or whatever. So check out futurefans.com. Thankfully, someone finally figured out how to get these young kids these days off their iPad and instead enjoying the entire Eagles game with you. Futurefans.com.
You know, it's great because I do have a hard time getting my 9-year-old and 3-year-old to sit down and watch the game. In fact, my 3-year-old will sit and watch the Eagles a little bit more than the 3-year-old. And the 3-year-old did tell me last week, I said, Mila, who's going to win the Eagles 49ers game? And she goes, 49ers. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? And sure enough, I should have, maybe I should have put money on that because the 49ers did win that game. Are you in shock? Like I talked to Jordan Mailata the day after, and Mailata said to me, he's kind of like dumbfounded and kind of in shock. And look, my eye test the whole season was something's off about this team, but I just believed they would flip the switch, beat a decimated 49ers team, and advance and play, in Chicago this weekend.
So I'm not shocked, but I am surprised. I did not think they would lose that game. And I said last week a number of times that if the Niners won, I thought it would be one of Kyle Shanahan's most impressive coaching victories. And to lose George Kittle and Jair Brown during the game and still win that game, it's incredibly impressive. You know, I've gone through it a couple times, Jeff. I don't know how many guys for the 49ers would start for the Eagles. You know, if you go back to that game last Sunday and actually go through it, not many. You know, it's a handful, 4 or 5 maybe, 49ers that would start over their Eagles counterpart. So when you're doing that, you know, they're banged up, you're playing at home, you were rested, they were not. That's a tough, bitter pill to swallow for the Eagles. I wouldn't say I'm in shock because not much shocks me, you know, when it comes to sports, but definitely surprised. I thought the Eagles would win.
What do you think the biggest issue was? Look, obviously it's the offense, but in particular, what do you think the biggest issue was and why they were eliminated and why things just did not click offensively this season?
Well, I will say this. I was disappointed in the defense in that game.
Really?
I did not think that the defense would give up 23 points. I mean, the defense had been on fire the last couple months of the season. You think about how good they had been against so many teams, and even against the Bills, giving up 12 points. So,
but how much of that goes to like the lack of offense? Meaning, like if you go inside, and I don't want to get too nerdy about this, but if you go, okay, the offense isn't doing anything, isn't moving the ball, and the defense is on the field more, that's wear and tear on the defense more, no?
it is, but I don't really buy that for that game against the 49ers because
Okay.
Saquon had 20-some carries for over 100 yards. It's not to me like a game where the Niners were just possessing the ball the whole time. The Eagles, to allow 23 points to that team without George Kittle, they needed them to be better. I thought that the first team that got to 20 would win the game, and the Eagles allowed that to be the 49ers. The game before, Jeff, they scored 3 points. The Niners scored 3 points against Seattle. Certainly, the Eagles' defense over the last couple months of the season was better than the Eagles' offense. And I think the biggest issue for the Eagles' offense is that their offensive line wasn't as good. A year ago, I thought they were clearly the number one offensive line. This year, they did not perform really even like a top 10 unit. And I think that was the biggest cause for the drop-off. But in this particular game, I thought the offensive line was okay. You can't have the drops that they had. You can't have the penalties that they had. And they needed the defense to play better. That's the thing. It's a total team loss. There were drops. There were penalties that you can't have. There was the defense giving up more points than I expected. You put all those things together, and that's how you get upset.
Yeah, and I know obviously you have a keen eye for the offensive line. You played offensive line, obviously in college at Princeton and then in the NFL. Is this a fixable thing? Obviously, Kevin Patullo has taken the fall for this offense. He gets let go as offensive coordinator. But do you think this is something that is fixable no matter who the offensive coordinator is?
I do. I do think it's fixable. I think a lot of the issues were health, quite frankly. I had a back surgery. I don't know the exact back surgery that Cam Jurgens had, but I can just tell you, I didn't feel as good the next year. It took me till the year after where I really felt like I was back. And by the way, Cam had other injuries he dealt with this year, which is why, like, he couldn't play in the Packers game, for example. Landon Dickerson had 2 knee surgeries since the Super Bowl. And it was very clear he wasn't 100%. I didn't think Mailata had as good of a year. They didn't have Lane Johnson the last month plus of the season. There's a lot of reasons why they just weren't as good up front as they were the year before. And there's a big difference between having a dominant offensive line and just a solid one, which is what they were this year.
So do you think it's fair then that Kevin Patullo lost his job as offensive coordinator if it was maybe particular more so than anything else on the O-line and the health?
No, not really, but I don't think football is fair. I don't think life's fair. I don't think professional sports are fair. I think, Kevin Patullo will be the first one to tell you that he wasn't able to do enough to get the offense where they needed to be, but he also went into almost a no-win situation. They won the Super Bowl. They basically had the whole team back. The only change, the only difference on offense was him. So the fans naturally were going to blame him for anything that went wrong because it couldn't be that the receivers weren't playing as well or that maybe A.J. Brown's not what he used to be or the offensive line was injured. I just don't think fans look at it that way as much. They look at as simple as who's new, who's different. Okay, we're not performing as well. It must be their problem.
Yeah, the offensive line and Hurts and AJ and you want to say what you want about Patullo, but overall, they took a major step back offensively in just about every single ranking other than red zone. I mean, red zone, they finished number 1, which is impressive, but everything else took a major step backwards. And look, as you know, it starts up front, and if the O-line is not playing well, then it affects everything. It has that domino effect. But when you look at this team overall, what do you think they need in the next offensive coordinator? Is there a name out there in a perfect world you would say that needs to be the guy? Obviously, people are throwing out Mike McDaniel and Brian Dable and names like that. Is there a name out there that you think would be a perfect fit in Philadelphia with this offense?
Well, that's an interesting question because, I know a lot of people like Mike McDaniel. You know, perhaps he could design the offense around Hurts's strengths. But what's interesting is in Miami, it was clearly built around Tua's strengths, which was a lot of, timing and rhythm and anticipation in the passing game. That's not really Jalen Hurts' strength. So that doesn't mean that McDaniel couldn't design an offense around Hurts' strengths. He absolutely can, but it would certainly be different than what he was doing in Miami in the passing game. So that's a unique aspect of it to consider. I think Brian Daboll and Sirianni have a relationship, so certainly, there's some real positives there. And Daboll has a relationship with Jalen Hurts going back to the time at Alabama. So there's certainly some positives when it comes to Brian Daboll.
You think Dable and Sirianni, they're fiery guys. You think that could coexist during the week, and there might be some fireworks on the sideline?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes people like that, they understand each other, and it works out really well. I think it'd be fun. I think as long as they're on the same side of something, I think that'd be great. I think the issue is if they're on different sides. So I actually do think it would work really, really well. I think Kevin Stefanski, I anticipate him getting a head coaching gig, but if he doesn't, I would love to see Stefanski. I think the Eagles could really do well with a lot of under center run game, under center play action, boots, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts this season, obviously he ran less and, he didn't play, I don't think, his best. And look, maybe to your point, it had a lot to do with the offensive line. But I heard him over and over this season, 5, 6, 7, 8 times this season, talk about how much of a challenge it was having a 6th play caller in 6 years. And that's just with the Eagles. That's not even going back to Alabama and Oklahoma. I believe he's had 12 different play callers since going back to college at Alabama. But it just sounded like him saying that it's been a challenge and this and that. And I don't want to say that's an excuse, but how much do you think maybe his head was spinning this season where, you play to the Super Bowl, you've played a lot of football the last couple of years, going back to the Super Bowl in 2022. It's a lot of football, a lot of change, a lot of different offensive coordinators. Do you think he was just tired in a sense and just maybe mentally just tired with everything, or is that just too much of an excuse?
I think that's too much of an excuse. I don't really buy that at all because it's not like they brought in a new system or a new language. As far as Jalen Hurts is concerned, it was basically the same offense. I mean, there's always going to be small tweaks, but most of the core of what they did was the same. He's very familiar with it, which, by the way, is, I think, a big reason why Sirianni promoted Kevin Patullo, is to have that continuity, to not have to have Jalen Hurts potentially learn a whole new language on offense, which he quite possibly could have to do now.
Yeah, and then when you look at this team overall, I've heard people say that at times it's predictable. Do you think it was predictable at any point when you watch film, when you would call some of the games? I know you're on the calls for the preseason games, much different, but during the regular season, did it look like it was predictable at all?
Well, if by predictable, do you mean they have core concepts that they utilize a lot? Then yeah, I think it was. I mean, when they're in gun, and Saquon Barkley is, to Jalen Hurts' side, a lot of times that run is going to be inside zone away from away from Barkley, I'm sorry. But that's a lot of teams. They do not have an expansive passing game. They do not have a heavily involved, heavily schemed passing game. It's more isolation routes. And clearly it felt like some of the teams they played had a pretty good idea of what those routes would be.
Yeah, last couple for you, and then I'll let you go. Some people are talking about A.J. Brown needs to go. Would that be a big mistake? I know he didn't have the best season. I know he didn't have the best, obviously, wild card game, the drops and the spat with Sirianni on the sideline. But do you think it would be a big mistake for him to go?
I can't say that. I can't say I think it would be a big mistake. I think it depends on who else they would get and what they would get for A.J. Brown. There are some significant financial ramifications that Howie Roseman would have to figure out of moving on from A.J. Brown. But I think it's something they should at least consider because when you have someone that doesn't seem to be happy and voices that displeasure, and they're also appear to be a descending player, he didn't seem as explosive. I think that's a combo that makes you really have to consider all your options.
Yeah, and you're on the call for the Rams-Bears divisional game on Westwood One with Kevin Harlan this weekend. In your opinion, because I do like the Rams, are the Rams a Super Bowl team? Because I'm going Rams-Bills for my Super Bowl. What do you like here?
Well, I think Rams-Bills, there's a pretty good chance of that. I think the issue for the Rams is their defense has not been good since like week 11, week 13. They've really dropped off. People have found a better way to attack their corners. Their corners' performance has dropped off. They're not getting the same pass rush from the defensive line. Their defense was awesome the first 10 or 11 weeks of the season. It's dropped off. So if they're going to get there, they're going to have to win some shootouts probably.
Ross Tucker, a great follow on X. I love your media food spreads that you show all the food. Hopefully other teams are starting to step up their game and go, hey, this guy's putting us out on blasting us on social with all these food spreads. Hopefully these teams step up their game.
Well, you'll appreciate it. Monday night I was on sideline in Pittsburgh, and I was talking with not the name drop, but I introduced myself to the owner for the Houston Texans, Cal McNair, and his wife, and I let them know that the Texans had the best press box food spread of any team I went to this year. They were very proud of that. So congratulations to the Houston Texans. You're number one. Maybe they can keep it going on the field too.
Yeah, the Cowboys have a good one too. I know people don't like the Cowboys around here, but the Cowboys have a great one. So
no question. Ross, I think maybe it's just a Texas thing.
Maybe it is. All right, Ross Tucker, a great follow on social media, does a great job covering the Eagles and, of course, the NFL for CBS Sports and Westwood One. Ross, thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
I like what Ross Tucker said there about Brian Dable. I think that'd be a great choice. Maybe some sideline semantics or antics, not semantics, antics with Nick Sirianni. Both are very passionate guys. Maybe that could work out. All right, Parx Casino is the casino of choice and a great place for a night of headline entertainment and winning dining. Award-winning dining. Parx Casino is something for everyone's entertainment taste. Coming up on February 7th, Piano Men Generations, a tribute to the Elton John and Billy Joel shows. That'll be here as well. And then February 28th, country artist Brett Young will be here. March 6th, Candlebox will be here in Parx Casino in Ben Salem. March 14th, the big one, you know him from Saturday Night Live. Comedian Tracy Morgan will be on stage here at Parx Casino in Ben Salem. April 3rd, Cheap Trick. April 18th, Melissa Etheridge. May 14th, The Wallflowers. ParxCasino.com to buy tickets. Of course, you must be 21. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's continue this chat and conversation about the Eagles. It's really hard to win. And I know it's not what we expected, and it's not what Howie Roseman or anyone expected. You could just sense it this week, just seeing Howie Roseman just sitting there, just seething, just upset they didn't make it. But it's hard. There have only been 9 teams in NFL history that have repeated as Super Bowl champs. The Super Bowl has been played every year since 1967, and there have only been 9 repeat champs. I think this could have been a shot for the Birds that they blew it. They were healthy. We talked about that. They had the highest paid offense in the NFL, but this team and many teams don't do well the year after a Super Bowl. Take a look at this. I want you to look at this. It is hard to repeat as champions. The first playoff game the year after a Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles. We saw what happened this year against the 49ers. Remember what happened, okay, in 2022. They go to the Super Bowl the following year. They're out against the Bucs early. Think about when they win in 2017. Okay, they get to the wild card, they get to that wild card game against the Bears, and then they eventually lose to the New Orleans Saints on a drop pass to Alshon Jeffrey. You thought, okay, Nick Foles is going to lead this team in New Orleans down the field. It is hard. Look how hard this is. And then, of course, when they got to the Super Bowl, in 2004, and they lost to the Patriots the following year. They didn't even make it with Andy Reid. And then you go all the way back to 1980, in the following year, losing in the wild card to the Giants. It's really, really hard. It is so hard to win. And I'll tell you, as much as it hurts right now, and Nick Sirianni pointed this out to the team in the locker room after the game, he told them that we needed to go through this adversity in the past to bring us to where we were in 2024, which was winning the Super Bowl. And if not for those negatives, if not for what happened against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2023 in the playoffs, that maybe they go further. And it led them to go further. I still believe this team becomes a dynasty. I really do. I think they have it. And barring just a ton of injuries and some major issues going forward, I believe this team has the ability to become a dynasty. I don't think this era is over of Eagles football. I really don't. And we've seen the course of time say otherwise, but the window is open here still for the Philadelphia Eagles to get back to the mountaintop. They've made 3 Super Bowl trips since the 2017 season. Look how successful this football team has been over the years. Take a look at the Eagles' dominance since 2017, winning that Super Bowl. Over the last 9 years, 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 wins. This team has been unbelievable. I know it's not good enough. I know it's not good enough getting out. But what this football team has done over the course of the last 9 years, they've been fantastic. They have. They've been absolutely great. They've had this great run, this dynasty over the last 9 years and counting. I think they're on the verge of a dynasty. Julie, do we have that graphic? So it's been a great run. They still can continue this run. And again, when you look back the last 9 years, there's not many other teams in football that have a resume like this. I know it's not good enough. I do. I know what happened against the 49ers stinks. It hurts. And here's Howie Roseman on just it not being good enough. He was upset. You could just sense it. He was short. He was sweet in that end of the season press conference, but he's upset. Listen to Howie Roseman.
Not good enough. If it doesn't end with confetti falling on our head, I don't feel like it's good enough. And I know that we're not going to win the Super Bowl every year. I think I know that from a broad perspective, but I believe we can. And I go into every offseason thinking we're going to do whatever it takes to win the Super Bowl. And when we fall short, I look at myself. I look at the things that I could have done different. And I look to improve, and that's where I'm at right now. You can do whatever it takes to win now and still build for the future and still have those parallel paths. I just don't want it to get confused that we can't do whatever it takes to build a championship caliber team next year and also continue to have really good players on this team for the future. So, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page on that.
Not on the same page was what was going on offense. So no surprise. Kevin Patullo is out as offensive coordinator. And none of us really know exactly what went wrong. Talking to everybody, I talked to Jordan Mailata about this, and he was honest. It's not just Kevin Patullo. It's not on him. It's really on everybody. It's on the health of the offensive line. Ross Tucker mentioned that. It is on each individual guy. Jalen Hurts, I think, took a step backwards. I think some of it has to be blamed on Patullo, that at the end of the day, it's your job to get the best out of this talent. And it is a new year. What happened last year doesn't matter. A.J. Brown spoke about that. But the offense has to be better. And now they're searching for a new offensive coordinator. And what are they going to bring in? But Kevin Patullo, Jalen Hurts kind of called him out on it. He was asked about why he wasn't running as much. And he's like, well, they weren't really called and designed for me to run this much. And that's on Kevin Patullo. And, that's as much as Jalen has thrown him under the bus this season. And I wouldn't even say it's him throwing him under the bus. But what Jalen Hurts did say about Patullo was, it was a challenge this year having all these different offensive coordinators. We get it. But the approach, what I thought was interesting, the approach what Jalen said of how the game is being called, they just haven't gone with the runs. And he tried to do his best, this is what Jalen said, with the position he was put in. That was the most that he said negatively about Kevin Patullo. And he did not give him a vote of confidence. He really didn't. But let's be honest. The common denominator here was Kevin Patullo, and I don't think it was all his fault, but look at just how backwards this offense went this year under Kevin Patullo compared to Kellen Moore. There's no scenario where the highest paid offense in the NFL should have taken a massive step backwards. Take a look at the difference between the Super Bowl season last year under Kellen Moore, and of course, he left to become the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, and look at what happened under Kevin Patullo. I mean, I'm sorry, there's a drastic difference here. They went backwards in just about every single category. And I agree, the offensive line was not as healthy. I agree that this team as a whole was just not on the same page for whatever reason. Maybe they were tired, or maybe they just were not able to figure it out. It happens. These are professional guys, professional athletes, but they're also human beings. I get it. But Nick Sirianni explaining why they fired Kevin Patullo, these numbers, a big reason why.
I think it's important that we continue to evolve as an offense, and that we, go out and do what's best for this football team. And again, everything that I do and every decision I have to make, I have to do that with what's in mind, just like Howie does, just like Mr. Rory does, with the intent of being the best thing for the football team. And at this particular point, I love Kevin and everything that he has provided to this coaching staff for his 5 years here. Big reason why we've won a lot of football games. But at this particular point, I just felt like that's what I needed to do to be the best thing for the football team.
Anything that I'm assessing, I'm going over with Coach, and I think those conversations on how we need to improve, I don't think that gives us any edge to talk about that publicly, because obviously we're getting into an off-season mode where we're trying to acquire players. So we'll go through a deep evaluation. We're disappointed. We're disappointed that we're having this press conference here, that we're not playing this weekend, and I can promise you we're going to do whatever it takes to try to get better.
Whatever it takes to get better, and I believe Howie Roseman, he has proven it over and over and over again. And we talked to Sal Palantonio last week, and the ESPN reporter, Sal, you've known a long time, who has great insight, was like, look, Howie Roseman is a Hall of Fame general manager, and Sal Pal said he'll do everything in his power to get Howie Roseman in the Hall of Fame one day into Canton. I believe and trust Howie Roseman is going to figure this out. Has he made mistakes? Of course. They all have, right? But Howie Roseman's track record, in my opinion, is second to none. So, new Eagles offensive coordinator, they need to evolve, Nick Sirianni says. And he's right. They did not evolve from last year with Kellen Moore to this year with Kevin Patullo. A couple names out there as potential replacements. Nick Sirianni says he will cast a wide net. Depending on the candidate, he could still have his hands in this offense. Falcons offensive coordinator Zach Robinson interviewed for the Eagles offensive coordinator job yesterday. He also interviewed for the same jobs with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions. Mike McDaniel, he's a very interesting name, is that he has also interviewed for the Lions offensive coordinator job and a ton of other head coaching jobs since being fired by the Miami Dolphins. That's an interesting name. I haven't heard an interview set up at this point as we sit here today about whether Mike McDaniel is actually going to interview for the job. I think that's a fascinating name. He's a brilliant mind. Would he work in this city? Would he work well in this situation? I don't know. Kevin Stefanski, a Philly guy, former Browns head coach. That's an interesting name if he doesn't become a head coach out there. Cliff Kingsbury, the former Commanders offensive coordinator and Arizona Cardinals head coach, is intriguing. The most intriguing name to me is Brian Dable. And Ross Tucker, who we had on a few minutes ago, he talked about that. I think Brian Dable, who coached Jalen Hurts at Alabama, was his play caller at Alabama. I think that's a fascinating name. And I think, look at Brian Dable did in Buffalo with Josh Allen. I think Brian Dable is a big-time name to watch if he doesn't get another head coaching job. But it does not sound like the Eagles care if their new offensive coordinator would be one and done, similar to Kellen Moore. They just want to win. So if it's a former head coach or a hotshot OC, like last year in Kellen Moore, and he's one and done, I don't think the Eagles care. They said just that yesterday. So Can they win with a new offensive coordinator? Is that what it's going to take? I mean, you have to find somebody that's going to get the best out of Jalen Hurts, the best out of this offense. And we don't know what's going to happen with A.J. Brown. Could he be out the door? Could Jalen Hurts be out the door? Who knows? I mean, there was an article yesterday in The Athletic from Mike Silver saying that there's growing frustrations inside the building over Jalen Hurts. I think that was felt from A.J. Brown and others this year. We just don't know. I mean, I wouldn't sit here and tell you that, okay, I think Jalen Hurts is gone, but I'll tell you what, after how he did with Carson Wentz in 2020, would you rule anything out? Of course you wouldn't. So the Super Bowl window, as we talked about, is still open for this football team. And so Nick Sirianni is going to be among those leading this search with Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie to try to get this team back to the playoffs and back on a Super Bowl run. I still think they have it in them to be able to do this. And you have to find a guy, in my opinion, that's going to challenge Jalen Hurts to get this offense going in the right direction. But, for some reason, there's something going on with this team. It does seem like there's a lot going on. It seems like it was a drama-filled year that on paper, it doesn't make sense. They can't figure this out. So they have to find somebody that is going to get the best out of this offense. As painful as it is, Kellen Moore was able to figure it out. They need the next guy to come in to do so. Here was Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman this week on what they're looking for in a new offensive coordinator and how much Nick Sirianni still may have his hands in the offense as the head coach.
There are so many different ways to be a head coach. There's so many different ways to be an offensive coordinator. There's so many different ways to be a quarterback and be successful at all those different things. And so, again, as we go through this, you always want to see somebody that has a great vision. To answer your question and not, give you some specifics at least, is like you always want someone that has a great vision and great conviction of things that they believe in and what they want to do. You always want to have somebody that has the players on their mind first, and we'll be able to attract a lot of good candidates because of the players that Howie's assembled to be on our football team. I think also that you'll be able to get a lot of good candidates because the guys that have been here and when we've had a lot of success, 3 of them have been head coaches, off of our staff, which, obviously I'm proud of. I'm sure Howie's proud of as well. And so, again, you want somebody that has great vision, great conviction on what they do, is able to coach fundamentals well to help the players get better, because I believe in that can connect with guys, because I believe in that, that has the mental toughness, because I believe in that. And, but again, it's not, there's a lot of good candidates. And I'm looking forward to sitting down and talking to a lot of these guys. But there's different things that make different guys special. And so it's about finding the guy that best fits us, that gives us the best chance to be, get back to the top of the mountain where we ultimately want to go. Of course, you have so many resources to be able to use to help you make the best decision that you possibly can. And you'd be foolish not to use all your resources, whether that's, when you speak of that, it's like, all right, I'm checking with the doctors, I'm checking with it's the same thing in a offensive coordinator search. I'm gonna obviously, talk to Howie through it. Howie's gonna talk to the guys. I'm gonna get Howie's opinion and Mr. Lurie's opinion and Jalen and Saquon and you name AJ, Lane, whoever it may be, and let them talk to him too. But at the end of the day, right, I have to make the best decision that's necessary for the football team, but you use all your resources.
When he's brought in people, he's given them the flexibility to put their own spin on things. And obviously, I sit here and I feel incredibly grateful that I'm working with someone who, as a head coach, is elite at being a head coach, elite at building connection with our team, elite about talking about fundamentals, game management, situational awareness, bringing the team together, holding people accountable. And when you're looking for a head coach, those are really the job descriptions. And as you're building out a coaching staff, you're talking about being able to do that, being able to have elite play callers on both sides of the ball. And when you think about how hard it is to find those three things and that we have one, I mean, we're starting with a huge advantage.
Yes, they are. The Eagles are starting with an advantage here. We'll see how this plays out. I do trust they will be able to find someone that's the best fit for the Philadelphia Eagles. And it sounds like Jalen Hurts is going to have some input here on the next offensive coordinator. And I think that would be smart to get all the input. But as the Ravens owner said, did you hear Steve Bisciotti this week? I mean, my goodness, it was a great press conference, highly entertaining. And, by the way, he's a Philly guy, the Ravens owner. He was like, Lamar Jackson on their situation will have some input, but he has no power. He gives his players no power. But in any event, Jalen Hurts sounds like he will have some input, and I think that would be a smart decision to have Saquon, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown to have some input on the next offensive coordinator. Let's get to our next guest here on the program, John Jansen. Let's bring in John in. You know him from of course, does a great job with Fox Sports Gambler on Fox Sports, does a great job talking football, talking anything you want. John, how's it going today?
It's going good. My first time talking with you, so very excited about that, Jeff. And it's one of the best, maybe the best football weekend of the year in the divisional round.
Oh, I disagree. No birds.
But it's a great one.
I don't agree. No Eagles in this. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. In any event, I think everybody was surprised that the Eagles lost last week, and now to be sitting here going, all right, the 49ers, they're in Seattle. They are huge underdogs against their rival Seahawks. Are you surprised that we're sitting here without the Eagles playing in the divisional round?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised because even with the offensive issues, and there were plenty of them, you knew that coming into that game that they were probably going to stall a lot. They were going to be 3-and-outs. We knew those issues were there for the Eagles, but they've always found a way, especially once they get into the red zone, they are very efficient in the red zone. They score a lot. So I thought that was going to help propel them over a 49ers team that really didn't have much defense to begin with. So you thought they could at least move the ball a little bit against a bad defense that has no pass rush at all, get into the red zone, and be able to score. The problem is they only were able to get there twice, and then the third time, almost near the end of the game, just didn't capitalize on it. So, it was very concerning to see like the first two drives ended up in touchdowns, and really nothing after that. So, very odd game. I expected the Eagles to be at least in the divisional round, and did not expect kind of the things to play out the way that did.
I'll tell you when I didn't expect to be looking today and going, the Seattle Seahawks are the favorites to win the Super Bowl. I mean, really? I mean, that does not feel right. I'm not buying the Seahawks. So when you look at the Seahawks today playing the 49ers in the divisional round, do you really like the Seahawks and Sam Darnold?
Yeah, I don't know really where to go in the NFC, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out because the Rams haven't looked that great either. They've been turnover prone, so that Chicago Rams game gets very interesting. San Francisco, as I just mentioned, has a really bad defense, and Seattle, their offense has been not great, and then you have, because of the quarterback mostly, and then you have the oblique injury come up out of nowhere, and there is cause for concern. So yeah, the NFC, I really don't have a clear picture on that, but I think this is more of, when I look at this game with Seattle and San Francisco, it's more of I don't like San Francisco. It's a bet against San Francisco. They put up no pressure against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles' offense. It was really their own doing in why the passing game didn't work. Sam Darnold is going to be comfortable. They have been running the ball a lot more lately, and I think with the oblique injury, they're going to continue to run the ball, so I'm going to go mostly with rushing props in this game. But I do like Seattle to cover and win this one, just because San Francisco just does not have really the firepower on offense, too. I mean, their leading receiver was Demarcus Robinson. That's not going to work against Seattle's defense. And then on the flip side of things, San Francisco just has no pass rush. So pressure on Sam Darnold. We know when he gets pressure that he doesn't do well. The problem is San Francisco can't do that.
You talk about you're not really buying anyone. I agree here because the NFC is wide open. That's why the Eagles thing is so disappointing. I mean, this was all just laid out for them to make a run, and they just never were able to turn it on. And I was wrong about this team. I believe that they would figure this out by this time of the year. So when you look at the two games today, you have the Bills and the Broncos. What do you like in that game as we talk about the two divisional games today?
Yeah, I'll go and start with the Bills and the Broncos. The Bills are going to want to run. They won't be able to. And I think they're going to have to completely rely on Josh Allen, and he's a playmaker. That's what you do. I'm going to actually go with his total completions over 19.5. That's minus 110 over at Bet Parx. This is going to be a death by 1,000 paper cuts type of game plan for Buffalo. They don't really have any great yards after the catch guys. They don't have any deep down the field guys. Brandon Cooks was the guy that burned at Jacksonville down the field last game. So they just don't have a lot, and it's going to be Josh Allen basically trying to dink and dunk, maybe get it to his running backs. But, yeah, they're not going to be able to run. I have a feeling this is going to be a very high-volume, high-efficient passing game. It wouldn't surprise me if he completes 25-something passes but only goes for maybe 200 yards. But I think he's going to go over the 19.5 completions. But I will also go with Buffalo in the game. Denver is the number one seed for a reason. They have the best defense in the NFL, one of at least the best defenses. Maybe Houston has something to say about that, maybe Seattle as well. But I just don't believe Bo Nix is ready yet for this kind of stage. He just misses too many opportunities down the field. He is not an efficient quarterback. And if you give opportunities to Josh Allen to maybe get back into this game or keep him close into it, we have seen time and time again, no matter how good a defense is, he finds a way to make it work. So I like Josh Allen to help the Buffalo win this game. I'm taking the Bills on the money line minus 105. Josh Allen over 19.5 completions. And I'll throw in an anytime touchdown. I think I saw Bet Parx over minus 117 for Josh Allen. Again, playmaking ability there.
You know, I still like the Bills. Like, I think the Bills are due, and whatever that means. I mean, it means nothing what I think. But I do think the Bills are due. I mean, they have just had heartbreak over heartbreak over heartbreak, you know, similar to the Bills in the 90s. This team, it just feels like Sean McDermott. This may be the year. And so I do like the Bills, and I do like the Rams to meet in the Super Bowl. And I know that when you go into the playoffs, okay, they're not the per se that the top dogs in each league or each conference, but I do believe that these two teams will get to the top. And so when we look at tomorrow, when we look at the two divisional games tomorrow, you have the Texans and the Patriots, and then the Rams and the Bears. Let's first talk about the Texans and Patriots. I don't think anyone saw the Patriots doing what they did this year. I mean, Milton Williams, the former Eagles defensive tackle, in his first year up there, he even said going into the playoffs, I'm not going to lie. Like, I did not expect this under Mike Vrabel in year one to do what we did. How much of a shock is it in the Patriots, and what do you like out of this game, Patriots-Texans?
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a shock. I was a high believer in Drake May as a talent, and once Mike Vrabel got there, and you got Josh McDaniels too, I think that's a really underrated part. Everybody looks at Josh McDaniels' coaching career as a head coach, and it's not very good, but the track record as an offensive coordinator has been fantastic. And Drake May has really benefited. And then as the season went on, you kind of realized that the schedule wasn't nearly as good, so it started to all make sense about halfway through the year that, yes, Drake May has taken the jump up, the coaching staff is better, and then the schedule's lining up for them to do well. This game, I expect these two teams just to take points. This is going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be a little bit reminiscent of the game last week between New England and the Chargers. One thing I did not like with Houston, their offense was terrible, especially the red zone offense. They are one of the worst red zone offenses, especially converting red zone opportunities into touchdowns. They are not good at it. So I'm actually, it's going to sound a little ugly, and it doesn't sound like a good football game because of it, but I'm going over 3.5 successful field goals in the game combined for both teams. I just think with the way Houston's defense is, New England is just going to want to settle for any points. And on the flip side, Houston will as well, and mostly just because they don't have the firepower offensively in the red zone to get that done. So points are going to be a premium, and I think both teams are going to really try and just get any points they can get. So that means over 3.5 successful field goals. That being said, it's a little tough to take New England on the 3 because of that. So I'm a little hesitant, but I would lean New England laying the 3. I would, if you want to, just like buy the 0.5 point, maybe make this a 2.5 point spread, since I do think it's going to come down to field goals. But I do lean New England on terms of the spread.
So when you look at this team, the over-under is 41. The over-under is 41. So when you look at this game, you're going under? You're going 100% under on this?
Yeah, it does feel like an under 2 if they're going to be settling for field goals. By the way, celebrity status over there.
Yeah. We're
I know what that's like at Parx. I'm there with Dick Girardi and Mike Kern all the time in the morning, and there's always handshakes there for those guys.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm going to go under 41.5 in this game too. Just again, I think because of the way that this game sets up defensively with Houston and the fact that they have really lacking at all in red zone efficiency, this to me feels like a field goal type game.
All right. I love this game. I mean, the Eagles, in my opinion, should be in Chicago this weekend for the divisional game against the Bears. But indeed, it is the LA Rams who are my pick to come out of the NFC. But the Rams-Bears game, there's so much drama in this because of Ben Johnson, right? What Ben Johnson has created, all the trash talking with the Packers. And you got to remember, LaFleur and Sean McVay are really close friends. And by the way, LaFleur's brother is a coordinator with the Rams. So there's lots of drama, and you could just sense that the Rams just want to go to Chicago and just beat up on the Bears, who have really been playing with fire, falling behind in all these games. They've had these amazing comebacks all year. We saw it in the wild card round. You're like, there's no way the Bears are going to win this game. And bam, they go back and win the game. So this game, what do you like in this game? It is probably going to be a tight game, but I like the Rams. How do you feel about the Rams and Bears in the divisional round game tomorrow evening?
Yeah, the Rams have the firepower, and they should be able to stick at the teams. I just don't think I've seen them really do it this year, especially late in the season. Turnovers have become an issue for Matthew Stafford. They've kept teams in games. They just have this kind of nervous energy about them sometimes, and I feel like we've seen that play out a lot this season. Eagles game, really good example of that earlier this season in the second half. The Rams couldn't do anything. So there does just feel like this nervous energy that sometimes things just don't go their way, and the Panthers game, another example of that in the playoffs. So here comes Chicago that can't do anything right normally. Just in normal situations, just like, hey, Caleb Williams complete like a 5-yard pass. It's like the most difficult thing to do. Then at the end of the game, it's, scramble out to your left, throw the hardest pass you can, Jerome Odunze, and he catches it, and you're going to win the game. It's two very odd teams in that way. But I am leaning Chicago to cover this game, and I actually really like Chicago to cover this game +4. Chicago is reliant on turnovers. That's not a good thing defensively. The good thing is, though, Matthew Stafford's turning the ball over lately, and he did so again against Carolina after they intercepted him twice in the first game. He threw another one in the playoffs. I just think we're going to see, yes, they're going to want to run. It's cold out. The wind chill, I think, is going to be -8 in Chicago. And the Rams are a physical football team. Kyron Williams, really good running the ball this year. They run the ball with Puka Nacua as well. They are physical. But when you get into the playoffs, they're not going to rely on Kyron Williams to win them a game. They want to throw the ball with Stafford, and I think they're going to try and air it out, maybe to their detriment. So I like Matthew Stafford to turn the ball over, and I like Chicago to cover this one. +4, I just think it's too many points for a Rams team that also has been playing with fire a little bit.
Yeah, look, the Rams came in here last year, and they played the Eagles in the snow, and, they were this close. Imagine the feeling Eagles fans would have had the Eagles not gone to the Super Bowl and won, which they were right there, almost losing that game. But everyone says Matthew Stafford cannot play in the snow, cannot play in the cold. I don't buy it. I think it's all situational. But that is a very intriguing game. The biggest intrigue I have is in that game this weekend. But John Jansen, last thing for you. Give me your Super Bowl picks. The two teams going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's an interesting question now that I had Jacksonville and the Eagles going to the Super Bowl. So, that's not a great first round for me. But the good thing is, it's a clean slate now. We're in the divisional round. I get to pick new ones. It's going to be really tough with the NFC side. I think I'm just going to stick with a really good defense. Yes, we have seen defenses take teams to championships before and carry bad offenses. So, this seems like Seattle is capable of doing that, especially because, I don't trust too much of what the Rams are doing. Again, the turnovers have become a really big issue for them lately, and they haven't been able to finish games. And then on the other side, I'm going to reluctantly take Buffalo. And it's really just the Josh Allen factor. I had Jacksonville. I didn't think Buffalo stood a chance. And then you just get to see, there's Josh Allen, 28 of 35, an 80% completion percentage, and a couple of go-ahead drives, and eventually the game-winning drive. It's just a lot to be able to take down a quarterback like that. And, we saw with New England, they're good. They're just not quite there yet in terms of talent on the roster. That, to me, is going to need another year or two for them to really be a playoff or at least championship contender. But I think Buffalo is in a good position, and Josh Allen's in a good position to finally get to that Super Bowl.
All right, John Jansen from The Gambler on Fox Sports Radio in Philadelphia. Thank you so much for your time. Great insight there on what may go down. Some great bets, perhaps, to put in for this divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Thanks so much, John. Great seeing you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff. And Hoosiers absolutely covering in the national championship.
All right. Sounds great. Okay, John Jensen from The Gambler, Fox Sports Radio in Philadelphia. Great insight there. Of course, live sports betting is better on the Parx app. Join me and get some skin in the game. Live betting makes watching the game that much more fun. Bet more with the score. Bet pro football playoffs. Bet touchdown scores. Bet individual player performances for passing, rushing, much more. Bet the college football championship. Plus, Bet Parx has a great offer for new users for the new year. Get up to $1,000 in casino bonus back if you're down in your first 24 hours. Plus, get a $50 casino bonus on Triple Cash Eruption, the hot slot game. Bet Parx, the only app that I recommend to bet on for pro sports and play classic casino games like blackjack, craps, roulette, and the hot online slots. You must be 21 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Michigan. BetParx.com has all the details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We have had a jam-packed show. We've talked so much about the Birds. We have talked so much about the Phillies. We had Tommy Greene on, the former Phillies starter, talking about everything that has transpired in the last 24 hours between Bo Bichette and JT Realmuto. But let's continue this conversation about the Eagles. And as I said before we talked to John, which was Jalen Hurts is going to have some input on the next offensive coordinator. You want to make sure Jalen is comfortable with this guy and you're on the same page. At the same time, you need that offensive coordinator to challenge Jalen Hurts. And as Nick Sirianni said multiple times this week, to evolve. And he let Kevin Patullo go because he did not evolve. You need an offensive coordinator that's going to evolve. But there's no question Jalen Hurts took a step backwards. I mean, there's no question about it. Look at everything as a whole, and Ross Tucker pointed out at the offensive line, but Jalen Hurts took a step backwards. And I thought this was interesting, this report from The Athletic, Mike Silver saying, quarterback Jalen Hurts has been a source of much internal frustration for the Eagles, and NFL sources believe they could draft a quarterback this spring. Maybe. I mean, we saw it with Carson Wentz. And was that put out there to send a message to Jalen Hurts? Like, hey, you better put up or shut up? Maybe. I mean, Mike Silver is a very established NFL reporter. He's been doing this a long time. He's not a Philly guy, right? So if he's going to come out with something like that, he's going to have his information right. So there's something there. I think it's very clear there's something there. But the Eagles, I thought this was interesting too. They didn't pull a Dave Dombrowski, Bryce Harper situation, not calling them elite, but the Eagles, they were not critical of Jalen Hurts this week. In the press conference on Thursday, they did not challenge Jalen Hurts in the nicest way possible. They could have done it. They didn't. And maybe, just maybe, you look at this team and you say, why don't they challenge the guy? They did not. And whether it's the offensive coordinator, whether it's the offensive line, whatever it was, Hurts took a step backwards. He didn't run as much. He blamed Kevin Patullo for that. He ran what the coach said he called. And at the end of the day, he did not deliver in the biggest moments. And maybe Devontae Smith, he doesn't drop a ball. They score a touchdown. They beat the 49ers. And here we are, we're talking about the Birds against the Bears in the divisional round. It didn't happen. But Jalen Hurts, he wants to be the Michael Jordan of football. You got to deliver. And there's no excuses. He mentioned 5, 6, 7 times this year the offensive coordinator changes have been a challenge for him. And he's had a lot of offensive coordinators. Look at this. Look at all the play callers. Jalen Hurts has had 6 play callers in the last 6 years. Hurts, he's going to go into next season with his 7th play caller, okay? The 7th play caller. Okay, if you look at this list here, it's ridiculous. This list is crazy. It goes all the way back to Alabama, but one name that's out there that I'm interested in, Brian Daboll, his coach at Alabama. Now, I don't know if Daboll would work here. I really don't. I think it would be brilliant. He did great with Josh Allen. Of course, he struggled with the New York Giants, which there's a bigger picture there. But Brian Daboll's a name I think would be a great offensive coordinator if he doesn't get another head coaching job. Maybe it would work here, maybe it wouldn't. Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman said this week that they have to find the best guy for them. Maybe it's Brian Daboll, but this list, Shane Steichen got the best out of him. Brian Johnson did not. Kellen Moore clearly got the best out of Jalen Hurts. they have to find a guy that's going to figure this out. And Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, they're not putting Jalen Hurts on blast. They're not putting all the issues on Jalen Hurts, at least publicly. Listen to what Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman said about Jalen Hurts. They're not blaming QB1.
Throughout the years, there was a lot of questions on Kevin, and like I've said to you guys, like we all had a hand in, our offense this year, good, bad, you name it. We all had a hand in it, and that's every coach, every player, myself obviously at the front of that list. But again, I love Jalen Hurts. I love everything that he brings to the table. Every time you step on the field, you feel very confident you can win any game that you're going to play when you have him as your quarterback, and he's shown that to this organization, to myself, to Howie, to the city, that he's a winner, and he is able to do many different things at a very high level. But again, anything that, whether it was winning the games or whether it was us not play up to our performance on offense, we all have our hands in that.
What Coach has said, we have won a lot of games with Jalen as our quarterback. We won a world championship with him as an MVP in that game. And so I think, obviously, he's done a tremendous job as our starting quarterback.
How much is Jalen open to doing new things and different things, depending upon the new coordinator?
Yeah, I think you saw this year that he's open to do a bunch. We were under center probably more than we have been. Different motions, different things like that. Here's what I'll say: like Jalen always wants to do. Like Jalen's proved this to everybody that he'll do whatever it takes to win football games, and sometimes that's throwing it a bunch, sometimes that's running it a bunch, sometimes it's him handing it off a bunch. And he'll do whatever it takes to win. All I've ever felt from Jalen, and all I ever know from Jalen, is that the man will do anything he can do to win football games. And he pushes himself to do new things. He pushes himself to excel at the things that he has already done so well. And he's proven to everybody, year in, year out, that all he cares about is winning, and all he cares about is being able to hold that trophy up at the end of the year.
Similar to the Mike Silver story in The Athletic yesterday, it's similar really what LaShawn McCoy said. Did you hear what LaShawn McCoy said last week after the Eagles were eliminated by the 49ers? He was on that podcast, that Speakeasy podcast with former Eagle Emmanuel Acho, and he kind of put it on Jalen Hurts, and he said, according to my inside information, the people that I talked to, that Jalen Hurts can't do all the razzle-dazzle stuff and the motion and this and that. I don't know if I buy that at the end of the day, as everyone is saying, but I don't think it's all in one person. I think Kevin Patullo is the easy fall guy. He's the common denominator, but I do think there's something to be said with what LaShawn McCoy said, what Mike Silver's reporting, other things that have been said, that, I think Jalen Hurts, and he has said, hey, it starts with him. He shoulders a lot of the blame. I mean, Hurts as a leader has said that, but the Eagles have not criticized Jalen Hurts. And they don't need to do anything publicly, but I did find that very interesting that Jalen Hurts is not taking one on the chin from the Eagles. And maybe it's unnecessary, or maybe, they would consider moving on for him. We don't know that right now. But I do know this. Howie Roseman is not afraid to make that big, bold move. So one of the biggest issues for this team this year was the question of whether or not they were predictable. And I asked Ross Tucker that. I've talked to other people. Hollis Thomas was on the show a few months ago talking about whether or not this team is predictable. We've heard people say on and off for the last year that the team is predictable. What Hollis Thomas told me, the former Eagles defensive tackle, a few months ago, is that they were predictable at times. And I found this insanely interesting. This week, after beating the Birds, Robert Saleh, with a banged-up defense that had no business coming into Philadelphia and beating the Eagles, when he talked about that final play, that final incomplete pass on fourth down in the final seconds that lost the Eagles the game and won for the 49ers, He says he used game film that he studied from the Eagles 49ers game in 2023 to help stop the Eagles on that fourth down play, and they lost. So, I mean, I thought, okay, is Robert Saleh, he's a smart guy, and you're going out there and you're trying to do your best you can as a defensive coordinator, putting your guys in position, and maybe it just worked, but did Robert Saleh see something there in this Eagles offense that led him to believe they're predictable and we're going to stop them? Here's what Robert Saleh said this week after beating the Eagles. I thought this was interesting. Listen to this.
What's going through your head on fourth down?
Well, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of recall, a lot of notes on that little sheet I have in my hand. Back in 23, we were set in the same situation, 2x2, little hook route to the tight end. Not saying that that's what we were thinking. It's just one of those recall moments. But they are who they were at that moment, and we had. You play your odds, you play your numbers, you play the down and distance, and luckily it worked out.
They are who they were. I mean, is he nicely saying that they're predictable? Read into it the way you may, but I find that insanely interesting. And they have some decisions to make. New offensive coordinator, what are they going to do with A.J. Brown? What are they going to do with Jalen Hurts? I think it's easy to believe Hurts is going to be back. I think it would be a very bold move that they would move on. But with Howie Roseman, you never know. But the Eagles do have some very big decisions to make. Take a look at this free agent list that the Eagles have coming up here. The top of the list, what do you do with Brandon Graham, Dallas Goedert, Reed Blankenship, Jalen Phillips? I know Jalen Phillips wants to be back. And I'll tell you what, since Jalen Phillips was traded from the Dolphins to the Eagles, he had a massive, massive presence for the Eagles in that defensive line. But there's some names on here that, I'd be fine they walked away from most of them, but you have to have a plan for tight end. I don't think Dallas will be back. I don't think Brandon Graham will be back. I think it could be another situation like last year. But Brandon Graham was a big influence. I think they needed him to come in and be a voice of reason on and off the field. But look, my number one target on this list to me would be Jalen Phillips. And it's really obviously going to come down to the money. But this team is not going to look the same. It just really is just not going to look the same. And so you have some key decisions to make with free agents. And I think you have a big decision to make at kicker. Could we talk about Jake Elliott for a second? I mean, I don't want to blame the Eagles are not playing in the divisional round on Jake Elliott, but I mean, he missed that extra point on the opening possession touchdown. And I don't want to say they lost the game because of Jake Elliott. You don't lose games because of the kicker per se. I mean, of course, the Baltimore Ravens may have a different feeling after what happened in the regular season finale against the Steelers. But you can't lose the game because of the kicker. You can have your kicker win games. And again, I don't want to put this all on Jake Elliott, but he struggled again down the stretch. He struggled last year. What's going on with Jake Elliott? You need these guys to win games. And this wasn't a 50-plus yard field goal. This was an extra point. And him missing the extra point had a domino effect. That extra point he missed on that opening possession had a domino effect the rest of the game. They lose by 4, okay? The Eagles lose this game by 4. Had he made the extra point on the opening possession, all of a sudden it's a 3-point game. You're not forced to go for it on fourth down at the end of the game. You then could kick a field goal to win it. And assuming he makes a chip shot field goal, they go to overtime and who the heck knows. And look, maybe they still lose. And again, I'm not blaming the loss on Jake Elliott. That is cartoony. That's ridiculous. But maybe they're still playing today. That one extra point, which should be a chip shot, which should be easy for Jake Elliott at home, you missed that. And maybe John Harbaugh's run, okay, is not over in Baltimore if their kicker doesn't miss that to end the regular season. Even though their owner said, okay, he would have lasted one more week, but you can't have Jake Elliott doing that. So is Jake Elliott going to be back? Are the Eagles going to try to find another kicker? I think you have to have the conversation, and they're not going to say it publicly. I mean, when they've talked about Jake Elliott publicly, they say they have all the confidence in the world in Jake Elliott. So, look, the Eagles have a lot of decisions to make. It wasn't good enough. We clearly know it was not good enough for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm disappointed they're not playing today. This team should be playing the Bears in Chicago. And who knows, I think they would win that game. In any event, some hard decisions to make for the Birds and some still decisions to make for the Philadelphia Phillies with spring training a month away in Clearwater, Florida. All right, well, that'll do it for us tonight, or this afternoon, that is. It's dark in the casino. It feels like nighttime. That'll do it for us on Parx Casino here from Bensalem, Pennsylvania. We appreciate all of our guests, from Ross Tucker with some great insight on the Birds, talking and blaming the offensive line for being the big issue on the offensive side, and he likes Brian Daboll as the next offensive coordinator, and a special thanks to Tommy Greene, kicking off the show today, talking about Bo Bichette, JT Realmuto, and everything going on with the Philadelphia Phillies. And, of course, John Jansen joining the program to give our gambling expert to talk about everything going on in this divisional round. So we appreciate it. Great show today, jam-packed show, talking about the Birds and the Phillies, everything else in between. For my producer, Julia Huff, I'm Jeff Skversky. Thanks for watching on Parx Saturday, live on the PHL Sports YouTube page. We'll see you next week right here at Parx Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. Have a great Saturday.
We all silly like the mayor.